Distinguished delegates, dear colleagues and friends, good morning everybody. I'm Mr. Chair, as the sign indicates. I'm Stefan Schweinfest, the Director of the UN Statistics Division, and I'm very, very happy to welcome everybody, give everybody a surprisingly warm welcome. New York was much colder last week, so I think we arranged that extra for you. It's going to get a bit colder over the weekend, but happy to see all of you. That Friday morning is always very special before our commission. Many of you have just arrived. This is our first event, bringing everybody together, the big statistical and data family from all over the world. And we start on Friday with our seminar on emerging issues. Now, this is actually, I was thinking about, is not exactly correct, because capacity building is not exactly an emerging issue. It's something that has been around with us and is critically important, but when we were discussing internally what should be put on the agenda for Friday, the idea of have we ever talked about capacity building really came up, and it's so critically and fundamentally important, so I thought, now let's dedicate a whole day to that topic. And I'll be honest with you, I have a couple of questions that I hope we will get answers, not necessarily by the end of the day, because this is the beginning of a one-year process, because next year capacity building is very central on the Statistical Commission, and my secretariat is tasked to write a report. So also see this as the launch of this reflection exercise, that we make sure have a good conversation, not only today, but over the next year, to really look at that topic. Capacity building, what is it? Where does it start? Is the writing of a handbook already capacity building? Yes or no? Of course, there are different forms of capacity building, workshops, e-learning materials, direct support to a country. How do we do that in a world where there are fewer and fewer resources? How do we all work together? So these are all topics that are on the agenda today. So the topic really that we have, the full title is Capacity Development for Relevant, Resilient and Agile National Statistical Systems, and all of this is of course very critically important. What situation do we find ourselves all in as statisticians? We have on the one side rapid technological change, which gives us opportunities, but it also needs to be managed. And on the other side, we have expanding policy demands. Everybody knocks on our door every day and wants even more data. And we have to deal with this as national statistical systems to remain trusted and future ready. And that's what we want to talk about. We need to adapt, we need to innovate. National statistical offices are, of course, right at the center of that. I mean, we have a professional tradition of producing high quality, timely, comparable statistics, and that remains fundamental. But I mean, national statistical offices nowadays don't start there with their own production. They become part of a broader national data ecosystems where we have private sector data, citizen-generated data, we have digital solutions left, right, and center. How do we manage all of that as a center of a national statistical system and safeguard impartiality, credibility, and professional independence? So national statistical offices need to lead and coordinate. That is another function from apart from the traditional function of producing numbers, actually. Now that's where we get to capacity building. How do we do that? I mean, we are not only talking about upgrading technologies or learning specialized skills about new census methodology or national accounts. It's much broader. I mean, how do we create institutions that are sustainable? I mean, how do we have also governance frameworks in place that also secure the long-term funding and viability of our national systems? So today we will not only talk about immediate needs, make a long list of what is needed, but we really want to listen about innovative approaches, in particular also talk a lot about financing and what is more important perhaps in this room where we are coming together from so many different places, coordinated financing so that we don't stumble with the best of intentions one over the other. And how can we keep each other mutually accountable? How do we even also know whether we have built capacity? I mean, we statisticians, one naughty friend once said to me, you measure everything, but you don't measure your own performance. I mean, how do you know that you have improved national statistics? And so these are all elements of a broad dialogue on capacity building. And as I said, this is not only on the menu today, and I'm very excited. We have great speakers for today. I think we will. But we will have bad news for you. We will not solve all the problems of the world by 6 o'clock this afternoon. But I mean, if we touch on everything and frame things well and find friends who will work with us on particular aspects of this topic, over the next year, I told you the capacity building is on the agenda for the next commission session in 2026, and then we will, I'm confident, have a strong report. I think also from one perspective, it's really a very opportune moment to talk about this. As you know, we will have a new SNA by the end of this week, next week, and we will start a new census round. So these are both major statistical operations in the countries that need our focus in building capacity and strengthening capacity, working effectively together. So this is a really historical moment. So I'm very happy that I don't have to do this alone. I have a lot of friends here in this room and in particular on the podium. I have a very strong podium, and let me introduce you who is sitting here with me. I have right to my right, Mrs. Nyaradzayi, Gumbonzvanda. I always thought I had a complicated name with Schweinfest, but I think you beat me. You are the United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director of UN Women, of course, a UN agency we work very closely with. You have dedicated your career to advancing gender equality and social justice, and I think we will hear a lot about that in your presentation. Then I have here on my left Mrs. Diana Castillo, Director General of the Statistical Institute of Belize, who will offer first-hand reflections on the challenges and successes in modernizing national statistics, drawing on her experiences leading major initiatives such as the 2022 Population and Housing Census. And then we have on the other side Paula McLeod, Head of Profession for Statistics at the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. And you will speak to the importance of trustworthy data in shaping global development policies and ensuring informed decision-making at the international level. So I can tell you one thing, watch our gender balance today. I'm starting this panel as a happy minority. And I'm very happy that we also have very different perspectives here right off the bat. We have somebody from the user side who will tell us what they want and what they need. We have somebody from the producer side, from the statistical family, who will talk about the challenges that we face day to day. And then we have also some partner and donor perspective, what they expect from us. So I think we are in for a treat. I'm looking forward to exchanging ideas. Welcome again to everybody. And thank you for joining us. Conference room 4 is proudly full, and that even before we start our Statistical Commission session. So this gives you an impression of how dedicated this dangerous statistical family is. And with these words, I pass the floor to Mrs. Nyaradzayi from UN Women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. When you are a woman with disability and the other hand cannot stretch, you look for help.
We're here to provide.
Thank you so much, Stefan, for the introductions, excellencies, distinguished guests, partners, friends. When I walked in, Stefan said, this is a room full of experts, statisticians, and policymakers, and I'm like, yes, I'm a user. But a woman is the very sophisticated statistician. Every morning, you have to count the beans which you have to boil for your children, and count the children that you have, and count the guests that are coming, and plan on the budget to make it possible. But again, thank you so much for having us and having me here. And for us as UN Women, we are so privileged to really have this very special day. This is the day when also member states are negotiating, hopefully the last day of the political declaration for the Commission on the Status of Women. So it's very special that we are looking at the issue of statistics and data from that premise. And from us as UN Women, we always believe that the strong statistical system is not only important for policy, it is embedded in the United Nations Charter itself. Article 55 of the United Nations Charter provides in very precise ways the clarity that the UN was created to also have conditions for stability and well-being of our nations and peaceful coexistence. And the commitment which is there is for universal respect and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, without distinction to race, class, religion, sex, or language. So the disaggregation, the notion of disaggregation is embedded in the United Nations Charter itself. And so our conversation today is very much rooted within that premise. Your work that you do in collecting, in processing, in using data helps to shape policies, to allocate resources, and drive inclusive development, indeed based on rights. But to reach their full potential, these systems must be gender responsive. We'll go a little bit more into it. Integrating a gender equality lens that allows for inclusive and quality data, laying the foundation for evidence-based decision-making so that women and girls can claim their rights and achieve equality. I love the work we do in the United Nations because we always say we are evidence-based, data-rooted, rule-based, principle-centered, and therefore the work that you do is so central to enabling us to do this work. In practice, though, recognizing the often overlooked contributions for women and girls is important. In my country, I was sitting in my village at my house with my husband. The enumerator arrived for the DHS, the Demographic Health Survey, and wanted to see the head of the household. So I called my husband, please, Charles, come. They're looking for the head of the household. He says, but Nyaradzayi, we always discuss and decide things together. So head of the household said, they are looking for you as the head of the household. I said, okay. He said, they are, and I was properly sitting there as a proper housewife. So every question they'll say, so what did you eat yesterday? Just how many meals a day? He looked at me. What are the dates in which your children were born? He said, do you remember? Was it February? He was looking at me. And I said, yes, to my head of the household. I answered all the questions. So the invisibility and the notions of inequalities in a shared responsibility of raising family are issues that we grapple with every day when we are looking at data. In my village, women walk hours to fetch water. just like I did growing up in my village. Yet their time is seldom measured or valued. Girls miss school due to unpaid care responsibilities, yet the policies and data often assume education is equally accessible to all. For a couple of years, I did not go to school because the school was not available for me to go to. It was during the war. But we talk about school dropouts in the definition, but I didn't drop out, I was dropped out. Concepts at times shift responsibility when actually needs to define responsibility. When women's work goes unaccounted, when unpaid care work is invisible, when gender-based violence is overlooked, or the gender-digital divide is ignored, we are not just missing data, we are denying human rights. That's what is at stake. Data only becomes true and valuable when they are inclusive, when they fully capture the lives of marginalized people and communities, particularly women and girls, those that are often left without data and hence decisions. This year is special. It marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, a critical milestone for gender equality, the empowerment and rights of all women and girls. In 1995, after 2 weeks of intense debate, representation of 189 governments agreed to 12 critical areas of concern. I was there as a little young woman who had climbed the aeroplane, as we say in my community, climbed the aeroplane without even technology to assist us to sufficiently communicate. Those commitments that were made then were unprecedented in scope and remain to this day very important and very comprehensive. And what was very clear was the evidence that is needed to sustain the tracking of the progress that was to be made. Critical concern objective H3 focuses on generating, disseminating gender disaggregated data and information for planning and for evaluation. It's not enough to just plan without evaluating. 30 years later, this is a moment we are evaluating what is the progress that has been made. And the data is telling that while some progress has been made, we still have a long, long, long way to go. More countries than ever before have conducted surveys on time use and data on prevalence of intimate partner violence, and this is now available. The stories are painful. What is also very painful is the inequalities around countries and regions. At times I hesitate to open the reports where the face of poverty, the face of dropping out, the face of HIV remains my face, the face of the black woman, the face of the little girl from the village, the face of the girls and women with disabilities. The inequalities exist, and inequalities including by gender. However, we must remain very committed, and we are only halfway. Countries are only halfway in planning, coordinating, and producing and making gender statistics available. UN Women and Paris 21 Gender Data Outlook report has confirmed this. Some low-income countries show stronger gender statistic capacity compared to high-income countries because they provide and invest in these systems. Intentionality is therefore critical. Indeed, inclusivity and resilience are also important. It's so important to talk about resilience and inclusivity. New challenges from rapid digital transformation to increasing demand for real-time data test our systems and capacities of resilience. We must continue to build on the opportunities and the potentials that we have. It starts with having the right legal frameworks. Currently, only 32% of countries mandate the disaggregation of statistics by sex or gender in their statistical laws. Fewer than 1 in 3 laws create a supportive environment for gender statistics, and even fewer include provisions for gender data production and accessibility. This isn't enough. National statistical offices and other key actors in the data ecosystem must step up on their accountability. Data producers and users also need to proactively safeguard data integrity and counteract the real threats we face today. We must protect the truthfulness of our information system with good, inclusive, and trusted data. Transparent practices and inclusive gender-responsive data governance is critical. People will trust the data if they reflect their lives and lead to interventions to improve their conditions. I used to serve as the African Union ambassador on ending child marriage. Very painful data on the contradictions of data, where the language is girls are being married off because they are poor families, because of poverty, and yet they are living next to a gold mine. So you have data on the economic potential, and you have data on the household poverty. And you have the stories of pain and the stories of opportunity in the same community. Therefore, the importance of having this very important critical data that enables us then to be able to say, how can policymakers deal with the political decisions that needs to be made? We must move away from data being an extractive industry. Women who share their deeply guarded secrets and stories of trauma due to violence, or those who tell about their hardship due to poverty, deserve feedback. I really appreciated visiting the Statistical Institute in Mexico and heard the efforts to say, how do we develop approaches for collecting data on violence against women that would not just be extractive, but which would also be empathetic. I don't know how to do statistical work which is empathetic, but which ensures that we are able to accompany the people who provide the information. And I was also pleased to attend the expert group meeting on citizen data last July. I listened to the voices of our citizens and communities who are ready and willing to be partners with national statistical offices to make statistical systems more inclusive and bring them closer to communities they serve. We know that the issue of citizen data also requires us to support human rights defenders, because at times they tell the story that is a sensitive story, but which must be told. And therefore, how to manage the protection and the support to citizens' data is important. When I talk human rights defenders, we're also just talking of something very basic, of just that little girl who came to my shelter. I was running a shelter, who said, this is what uncle is doing to me. And the neighbor telling that story to the local village health worker. The person who provides that information and data becomes a human rights defender. Because at times we think about human rights defenders from the big civil and political rights, but also not the basic issues of social and economic and environmental protection rights. These are very important. We see, of course, we are excited as we see also the work like the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to institutionalize the participation of civil society organizations and non-state actors. As I conclude, finally, sustainable gender-responsive data financing is paramount. I am celebrating with one eye as I see the room full. I'm hating when I feel the regressions to the commitment to gender equality in the world today, and see that those regressions are about lives. Lives. The less funding to gender equality and women's rights work is about the lives of the women and their children and their communities. It's how through statistics and data, we have to say responding to violence against women and sexual violence in conflict. Funding that work is life-saving. It's a life-saving intervention. And the data that is there, 167 women were raped in DRC last month as the crisis happened. This data we have from Haiti, there is no correlation between the funding and the realities of those lives. The data that you produced UNDESA and UN Women, you shared that data. $4.3 trillion, 2023, in military expenditure, and 193 girls dropping out of school. And then we say, how do we prevent gender-based violence in conflict? Because the funding is actually creating the gender-based violence. The data is telling that we must resource prevention, empowerment, sustainable development. For us to achieve the SDGs, we need a world of peace in our homes and a world of peace in our countries. Data financing is critical, and financing of capacities of our institutions and the national statistical institutions must be resourced so that our policymakers and decision makers are able to make informed decisions based on evidence. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Assistant Secretary General, for that passionate and inspiring speech at the beginning of our meeting, and reminding us that data are about lives, and you brought our data alive, and I wanted to thank you for that. Let's go on to our next speaker, Diana from Belize, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, esteemed speakers for this opening session, panelists, moderators, international partners, and colleagues from across the global statistical community. It is truly my pleasure to be a part of this session to set the stage for the rest of the day's discussions, although following the remarks, the very powerful remarks of our colleague from UN Women, I think that what I have to say will probably pale in comparison. But still, I am especially pleased that this year's Friday seminar is focused on the issue of capacity development for the building of relevant, resilient national statistical systems, as this is a topic of great strategic importance both for Belize and for the CARICOM statistical community to which we belong. I think it's fair to say that we live in a time in which there is unprecedented recognition of the value of data, and not just within the realm of policy development and decision-making with which we NSOs are familiar. With the rapid speed at which technology evolves, data users of all types are now accustomed to having instant access to any and every type of information. This has led to an exponential increase in demand for data, and within the domain of official statistics, for more data at an increasingly granular level, delivered with an even shorter turnaround time. The evolution in the demand for data can be at odds with the systematic and meticulous way in which NSOs are used to working. If we are unable to deliver, our data users turn elsewhere to data produced using less than the rigorous standards that we uphold and of quality that we can't speak for. This has not only tested the agility, responsiveness, and adaptability of NSOs, but can leave us struggling to re-establish our relevance within this rapidly changing landscape. Nonetheless, official statistics are critical to the advancement of global, regional, and national development agendas. Policies and interventions have the greatest likelihood of success when guided by sound evidence, and the rigor with which we, as national statistical offices, produce our statistics lends itself best to the production of such sound evidence. However, while it is clear that NSOs are the centers of excellence with respect to official statistics, we cannot and will never be able to meet the rapidly growing and changing needs of our data users alone. Now more than ever, we must rely on other producers of statistics within our national statistical systems to fill the gaps that remain. These agencies are almost always considerably smaller, face even greater resource constraints, and for many, the production of statistics is often not the only or the primary focus. They are incredibly susceptible to the loss of institutional knowledge when persons leave their organizations, and very often don't have the benefit of legislation that provides them with a clear statistical mandate. This means that while a great deal of effort has been rightfully focused on raising the quality of statistics produced by NSOs, there is now an urgent need to turn our focus outward to our partners in the NSS and to build their capacity to produce the type and range and quality of statistics that is being demanded of us. This presents new challenges for NSOs, which are themselves under-resourced and understaffed. Many of us don't yet have the requisite institutional capacity to effectively coordinate our NSS, and our own statistical legislation sometimes doesn't adequately address how coordination should take place and what governance mechanisms should underpin the NSO's coordination efforts. Nonetheless, I believe that this presents an opportunity for NSOs to cement our relevance, to ensure that the statistics we produce and in which our countries invest so much public resources can contribute to national development and have a meaningful impact on the quality of life of our people. At a time of dwindling resources for development funding, interventions need to be more precisely targeted and evidence-based in order to maximize the benefits that they derive. This requires that NSOs take the lead in ensuring that our data systems can adequately carry out their primary function of providing quality, relevant, and timely data to support decision-making. But in order to make the most of this opportunity, we need to bridge the gap between our present capacities and where we need to be. This involves the development of new skill sets within NSOs, both technical and institutional, including building our capacity to coordinate and provide support to our NSS data producers. Here is where the presence of technical and financial support from our development partners is key. Moreover, there is a need for partners to ensure that such support is also demand-driven and responsive to national data needs and priorities, that it is as much as possible aligned with both the Global Sustainable Development Agenda and national development priorities. The experience of Belize has been exceedingly positive in this regard. Paris 21, for example, which has provided support to the development of our new national strategy for the development of statistics, has worked closely with us to align this strategy with the data needs of key stakeholders, our country's national development plan, the capacity needs of the NSS, and the need to build the SIB's capacity to coordinate our NSS. Furthermore, strategic focus has been placed on strengthening the NSS's capacity to produce climate change data, especially important for countries such as Belize that are among the most vulnerable to its adverse effects. Improved climate statistics will provide our country with objective data on how we have been and how we will continue to be impacted, guide the development of mitigation measures and climate resilience strategies, and support the mobilization of the resources needed to implement them. We have also benefited from such support from the UN system and other international partners to develop a national poverty statistics program, a direct response to our country's need for more timely data to advance the national development priority of poverty reduction. With their support, we have developed annual multidimensional poverty index, monetary poverty, and food insecurity statistics work programs. We have further embarked on capacity building for key data users in the analysis of this poverty data and for government officials in the use of poverty data for policy development. This approach is also necessary at the level of our national statistical system, where NSOs as coordinators need to ensure that our efforts to support NSS agencies are driven by their capacity needs, their data reporting obligations, and all of our national data needs. It's a daunting task, and even more so for small countries such as Belize and our CARICOM sister countries. Many of us find ourselves stretched thin simply to keep up with new statistical methodologies and standards, unable to achieve compliance with one set before another is endorsed at the global level. Often, even when afforded a seat at the table when new methodologies are being developed, we find it difficult to contribute meaningfully just due to our small size and human resource constraints even though we recognize how important it is for the perspective of small countries to be taken into account. I cannot emphasize enough how much of a challenge this presents for the smallest of our CARICOM NSOs. There is a definite need for methodological development to be accompanied by greater or at least more effective support to building the capacity of small NSOs so that we, and by extension our entire national statistical systems, are not left behind as the rest of the world advances. Within CARICOM, our statistical community has responded by establishing regional mechanisms for capacity building through pooling our collective resources and leveraging our relative strengths. We have, for example, established regional centers of excellence where countries that have been able to develop significant subject matter proficiency serve as regional experts, providing South-South assistance to other member nations. Our countries, though we differ in our levels of statistical capacity in various areas, are sufficiently homogeneous, particularly in the common challenges we face as very small countries, that the knowledge and experience gained by one can be readily adapted to benefit others. Similarly, CARICOM has found other ways to achieve economies of scale through the use of regional public goods. These are generic tools such as our Model Statistics Bill that can be adopted and adapted by member countries as they seek to develop or modernize their own statistics legislations. The same approach is applied to the adoption of efficiency-enhancing technology, such as the generic Statistical Business Register application developed with the support of Statistics Canada through the Project for the Regional Advancement of Statistics in the Caribbean, or the sharing of Belize's census suite of applications developed by our NSO to support our own census and survey activities for use by other countries. This pooling of technological tools across the region has the potential to greatly benefit our smallest NSOs, affording them the possibility of being able to produce their existing outputs more efficiently and therefore expanding the range of outputs that they can produce. In Belize, we have also taken this approach at the national level in our efforts to coordinate and strengthen our own NSS. The disparate capacities of our various producers of statistics, while making the task of coordinating the system more complicated for the SIB, means that some agencies have already developed their own subject matter expertise or advanced with respect to the use of innovative technologies. Just as CARICOM is doing at the regional level, we are seeking to facilitate the sharing of expertise, technology, tools, and templates among our NSS agencies with a view to strengthening those most constrained or that are further behind. Colleagues, the challenge of building resilient, agile, and relevant national statistical systems cannot be underestimated, especially for small and developing countries. It requires a coordinated effort that starts with our NSOs, supported by our development partners, and made more effective through the pooling of resources and skills within and across countries. With this in mind, I have no doubt that today's sessions will be filled with engaging and insightful conversations on not only the difficulties that this task will entail, but also how we can collaborate to advance its achievement nonetheless. I thank in closing the organizers of this event for the invitation to speak, to share the experiences of Belize, and to represent the voices of our CARICOM NSOs. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Diana, for so frankly sharing your experiences from the perspective of managing a small national statistical office. I'm sure you speak the language and you speak right out of the heart of many people in this room. I thank you also for always making the step immediately in your part of the world from your national perspective to CARICOM, the sub-regional perspective, which is a good example how when countries work closely together, they can indeed achieve more. And I really also thank you for introducing the distinctions of the different types of capacity, because you highlighted that there is technical human capacity, there is financial capacity, there's institutional capacity, and we'll talk about all of these things today. So thank you for your contribution, and we move on to our last speaker, Paula.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me okay? New to the microphone. But no, this is fantastic. What an opportunity to join such a fantastic opening session. And yeah, intimidating to follow after such wonderful speakers. But hopefully I'll do justice. I'm so excited by the day, and I'm so excited by the sort of the framing of the discussion and the decisions that will carry on throughout the week and the year ahead. It's a privilege to represent the UK here. We are so deeply committed to stats capacity building. It is the key to everything we seek to achieve. Whether that's through our development partnerships led by Department for International Development or the FCDO, the Office for National Statistics and all they do in terms of international relations and peer partnerships, the Data Science Campus, research and innovation, academia, other government departments, there is a whole suite of investment in sustainable stats capacity building. And it's been there historically, and we remain committed going forward. I think Stefan asked at the start about this thing of demonstrating progress, and as part of this I was looking back, and we do have to we see challenges, but we must remember we've come such a long way, and regardless of how we choose to measure, be it statistical performance indicators, the coverage and availability of data on the SDGs, the expertise and representation that you all bring to this room and you host within your offices, or the demands of society for data, there are all ways that they tell different stories of progress, different things that we can leverage, and one that we really need to shine a light on. We need to be able to say that stats capacity building works. We need to tell that story of how it transforms society and lives. We can sort of see the emerging stories. Those with the highest performance indicators tend to have the highest levels of human capital or government effectiveness. Regardless of the size of the economy, we need to be able to find that causal factor that comes from our investment in stats capacity building. And also being realistic, we need to demonstrate how is it so intrinsic to growth, be it through trade, domestic resource mobilization, public financial management, private sector investments. We know that these are trustworthy data and statistics are a necessary precursor to all we seek to achieve, but in themselves, they are not sufficient. And so we need to look too to the partnerships that sit around this, be it between politicians and society, ensuring that we are agile and responsive to the most pressing needs of society, that we're aligning our strategy intentionally, where we look to multilaterals and technical providers to make sure that they are coordinated in their approaches, empowering, building sustainable systems at a country level, not duplicative or extractive techniques. And then as a donor, we have a massive role as well. This is how we can incentivize coordination. What is it that we can do differently? We know that the way we fund the system sets the incentives, and this can drive collaboration and progress, or it drives competition and fragmentation. And this is something we have to surface and move away from. Surfacing the other elephant in the room, this is a very difficult time to be a donor, okay? I don't know if anybody's seen the news today, but it's just got even more difficult for the UK. And the other thing is that our budgets are decreasing. The UK has taken the most difficult of decisions to increase spending on defence, and that comes at the trade-off is the reduction in development budgets. This has been taken in full coordination with other European leaders. These are difficult decisions that are being faced in all countries. And it's going to mean a significant reduction in our budgets, our financial capacity from 2027 onwards. And that means how we partner and how we deliver will have to change. But the mission will not. We remain committed to ending poverty on a livable planet. The question now is how we manage this change without the impacts falling disproportionately on those who are least able to cope, those who are already poor, already discriminated against, already marginalised. We have to navigate our way through this. We will have to focus on the outcomes and impacts, not just what we do, but what does it achieve? How do we work differently? finding those efficiencies, improving the ways we work, adopting and really embracing opportunities for innovation and the expertise that we hold and will sit at the heart of what we seek to achieve. And these seismic shifts across the political and donor landscape, they should be the wake-up call that we have to stand up. These things can happen. We've built a system that is fragile. We have built a system that can fall with one donor changing priorities, and we have to stand up for what we believe in, what matters most, and where we can deliver with greatest impact. The solution doesn't mean we will not do sticking pastors. We cannot mend a broken system. We're going to need a fundamental shift in how we approach these. And coming back to stats capacity building, we have to show what is effective, building those mechanisms for mutual accountability. And we're going to need the data and statistics to navigate our way through this. This is our evidence base. This is our data for better lives, underpinned by that social contract that allows us to do this in a trusted way. We're talking about this today, but this call to action was also set out at the midpoint of the SDGs. How do we accelerate progress? How do we deliver in a contested landscape? And across those high-impact initiatives that are identified, we circle back round to the opportunities of digital transformation, the power in data, the opportunities and partnerships that can really turbocharge our impact, fueled by the statistical expertise of our community. We have to harness this potential. And when we look back to the power of data, this is how we accelerate progress, drawing on the potential available to us, specifically targeted at bringing together the political and technical partnerships, those actors across society to establish locally owned and targeted commitments and action plans. This power of data belongs to all of us, and it's all of our responsibility to deliver. And it is no one thing. It is a suite of actions that we're going to have to work out how to bring this to life. But we do know there are some vital components. Capacity to make use of data. So how do we strengthen that culture of decision-making? How do we make sure these data aren't sat on the shelf? They don't sit in the report. They sit on the lips of every decision-maker, of every leader, and they are driving evidence and decision-making at the difficult of times. Reflecting back on some of the examples that we've learnt so far, I looked to Morocco. I think we'll hear more about them later in the sessions today, and how that collaboration and exchange between planning ministries really enhanced their capacity to collaborate and produce data for decision making. Or Tunisia, where we're bringing together NSOs with UN Stats Division and GPSTD to leverage the new opportunities of mobile data. These foundational work and this sort of exploratory analysis, the threads that we can pull, and then unlocking greater levels of funding via the Global Data Facility. And this capacity has to come with a strategy. It has to be planned, it has to be targeted, it has to be sustained and communicated well at all levels. And this points back to the vital importance of the NSDS, that national strategy, ensuring it's aligning with national and global priorities. And when it's well implemented, again, it's not a document for a shelf, it's the document that is going to drive all of this development. It will strengthen the capacity, culture, and sustainability of national stats offices. And within this, how do we bring to life those new opportunities of citizen data? How do we do more with administrative systems and CRVS? How do we evolve and complement our traditional surveys with these new opportunities? Recognizing within this, we need the resources to do this well. For those who've been following, and I hope you have, we should be cautiously optimistic around the financing for development and the text which we've secured around really high-level recognition of the value of data and linking into digital transformation to deliver all of those objectives. There's a whole chapter dedicated to monitoring and follow-up, and it's really important. It's, monitoring is not mindful. It doesn't happen and sit and report. It has to be really leveraged and active participation with these data to drive the whole of the FFD4 agenda. And there's a call of action on all of us to work with our member states and make sure that we strengthen and take forward this data in the next rounds of the FFD4 text. We have to seize this, we have to unleash it. And it requires NSOs to be in the driving seat of their of data stewardship. We have to be able to speak the new language. We have to be able to build forward from the fundamental principles that have served us so well and got us so far in a trusted data landscape, and make sure they remain fit for purpose and apply to new data opportunities. And as you say, we're talking about more, but we're doing it in an increasingly contested and resource-constrained world. Prioritization is key. We have to keep demonstrating relevance, showing we are doing what matters most to our budget holders. That's how we get them excited about this. We play to those interests. We demonstrate what we do. We push into the conversations and bring our data to life. We're going to need adequate and reliable support for NSOs and strengthen stakeholder coordination. We can't drop in helicopter solutions. This is a long-standing commitment that's going to build capacity over extended periods. And we need to make sure that we're being proportionate. The data demands that we create here in New York or Geneva are manageable in small and developing NSOs, that they're relevant to the national priorities, that these are data that are used and valued. And this is how we ensure that there's sustainable and coordinated approaches. We cannot have any more, we cannot afford duplication or extractive data processes. And I'm hearing a lot, we've heard it today, these points around peer learning. People know how to do this better. And we can do better, we can learn from each other, and that points to learning from our friends, our counterparts, those South-South partnerships, and establishing good practice, building forward from that, building forward from the best practice. Coming back to coordination just in the last point, the UK, we've been trying to do this. This is how we've chosen to sort of take forward our business case approach. This is how we bring together our partners against sheer outcomes. We say, you know, we think you're all wonderful, but you need to work together towards the same outcomes and bring together your respective talents. And that's how we encourage collaboration and not competition. Within this, we also have direct country partnerships, which is how we look at testing emerging opportunities, things that we can scale. What is it that shifts our schema? What is it we can do differently? These need testing, and when we find the things that work, this is how we normalize and bring to scale. We align our outcomes with the Medellin framework. Those are the pillars and priorities that we all need to get behind in delivering the action plan for the data and the SDGs. We don't need a new strategy. The call to action has been set out. Let's work together to deliver it. And so that's all part of a narrative of how we're committing to data. We're committing to the power of data and the partnerships and coordination which are needed now more than ever to really drive forward in terms of capacity building for relevant, resilient and agile national statistical systems. Stefan.
Well, thank you, Paula. Well, let me also take this opportunity to thank you and the UK. I think you've been our partner for as long as I can remember. I mean, even when you still had a different acronym. I mean, I started working with DFID and now it's FCDO. But what has not changed is your commitment to statistics and data. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you for that. Thanks for reminding us on the accountability and the importance of communicating well what we are doing. I think that's sometimes our own worst enemies in that sense. We are not beggars, but we are offering people a fantastic investment opportunity, and that's how we have to see ourselves, and in particular in difficult times. So let me please invite you to give our fantastic panel one more round of applause. A good way to start the day. Thank you to all three of you. We are going to take a 5-minute break to change the podium, and then we continue with the exciting program. And I have bad news for you. You will see me again, but at the very end of the day. I'm sort of the bookend of this event. I start and I close at the end. Thank you very much.